Welcome. Tonight's class is on food combining. We're going to make this specific to candida and fungus as much as possible, but these rules, or should I say more of a guideline, will help anybody with any type of digestive issue. If you get heartburn or acid reflux, or if you're constipated, or if you get gas, bloating, those types of issues, all of those can be eliminated just by combining food properly. When you learn and understand what food you eat, what happens within that digestive tract, when you put certain foods in your body, will kind of help us to understand, why we're developing so many problems we are. And I didn't really put a lot in this handout about other cultures, but it would have been really neat to look at, if you study other cultures, how other cultures eat their foods. You got to admit that Americans are pretty unique in the way we eat. The drive-thrus and the convenience and everything made in packages for our convenience and things of that nature. Most of the world isn't like that. I mean, we've brainwashed some people in some countries, but for the most part, other countries don't eat the way we do. They know about proper food combining. Whether they study food combining or not, maybe not. It's just kind of the way they've lived and that they grew up. They just kind of learn some of these basic principles. They learn to take something before a meal to stimulate digestion, whether it's olives in Greece, or whether it's a little bit of sherry when I lived in France, but a little sherry to stimulate digestion before a meal. But again, we don't really do a lot of that in the United States and America. We're pretty much running through drive-thrus and just eating whatever, and then when we have acid reflux, we just grab the Tums or Zyrtec or whatever that other stuff is. So, and just band-aid the problem. We don't, and I don't think we do it on purpose, but we don't make the conscious connection that what we're eating is affecting the way we're feeling. Either we're not making the connection, or we're just ignoring it because we just, don't care or whatever. We can just band-aid it with the Tums or something like that and just move on. But I think it's time we start learning. And when you get into this, you'll see how simple it is. Now, I didn't get complex with this. You can get really complex with food combining. You can read whole books on food combining, some great books on food combining. But Body Ecology, Donna Gates talks a lot about food combining. Robert O. Young in The pH Miracle has really good information on food combining. Fit for Life, which is a book that's been around forever, has a lot of great information on food combining. So those are some books you can read if you want to get really more detailed information. I tried to make it really simple because, again, I want something that people will do. If I get up here and talk about 300 different combinations of things to do, you guys are going to be like, what the heck did he say? I can't do that. So I'm going to give you like 3 just super simple basic things. And what I challenge you to do is, if you're not doing these things, I challenge you to do this for even a week, 2 weeks, a month. See how your digestion improves. See how all of a sudden the gas and the bloating and the acid reflux and all these things you were having just suddenly magically disappear. And you'll see that you're not really depriving yourself necessarily, but I guess that's up to you. But so let's go through it a little bit. One thing I listed, just based on our body and the way we should be eating. We've all heard, your body's 70% water, da 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 da. Okay, well, when your body's 70% water, let's think of that logically. What's that mean? That means we should be drinking water, and we should be eating foods that contain water, right? Okay? If you're eating foods that don't contain water, you're dehydrating yourself. How many people think of a meal replacement, like a shake or a smoothie, or like a protein shake, as being dehydrating? It absolutely is. How does your body utilize every nutrient that enters your body? How does it get nutrients to the cells? How does it get waste material out of the body? Water, 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 water. So if you're drinking protein shakes all day long, or powders, even if it's healthy stuff, even, rice bran powders, or, those meal replacements, a lot of those meal replacement shakes, like, I don't know if Weight Watchers or those kind of places have meal replacements and stuff like that, but they have a lot of, there's a lot of stuff we take in powders and we add to water and we drink it. It's very dehydrating. Because again, the body has to use its water, its reserves, to make that into a usable form, into a usable food. So we need to be eating watery foods. And if we're not, we're going to be dehydrating ourselves. I see a lot of people are like, well, I drink tons of water. Well, if you drink tons of water and you eat nothing but bread and potato chips and stuff like that, you've just wasted your water reserves because your body has to use its water supply to digest and break down that food and utilize it and eliminate it. So, and then fat. You know, we've talked about fat a lot, but our body is comprised of a lot of fat. All our organs, all our tissues, our nerves and arteries, our brain, you know, we're made of a lot of fat. So we got to stop being scared of fat. I don't want to get too much into that, but you know, that's one of the main things I think we should be eating after watery vegetables, good fats. And then sugar, if you actually look at the composition of the body is only about 5% sugar. We don't need a lot of sugar. We do need sugar. It's very important for feeding the brain and feeding the organs and giving us energy. And there should be a certain amount of energy floating through the bloodstream at any one time. But we kind of do the opposite of what this is. We kind of do like 70% sugar, you know, 5% water. So that's going to cause problems. So principle number 1, very simple. Eat fruits on an empty stomach. A lot of you guys have probably heard this already. The reason for it is pretty simple. I am not against fruit in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it's one of my favorite foods on the planet. But as I've always said through these classes, especially when it comes to Candida fungus, if you have a compromised system, if you have a compromised problem going on inside your body, fruit might not be a good idea for you for a while, even if it's just for a month. If you're trying to cut out sugar, you might want to include fruit in that because it will feed yeast. But it'll really only feed yeast if you don't combine it properly. Okay, so think about the way we eat fruit. We usually put fruit in our yogurt. We put fruit on top of our pancakes.
Cheese.
What's that?
Fruit and cheese.
Fruit and cheese is pretty popular, combining those kind of things. You know, banana splits. No, that's a bad example. I mean, seriously, we eat fruit with, you know, we very rarely eat fruit by itself. I mean, a lot of people take an apple as a snack or something like that. But you have to, again, understand what's happening in the body. Okay? So fruit is a carbohydrate. Okay? So carbohydrates in the body, and you'll see this a little bit later, but carbohydrates in the body, they're first broken down with saliva. Okay? So anything starchy, fruit, breads, sugars, all those types of things are broken down with saliva first. That's why chewing is really important. Okay? And then small intestine, a slightly alkaline environment. Okay, that's what it takes to break down fruit and starches and things like that. Okay? So what happens is if you eat fruit with other foods, like say for example proteins or grains or other things like that, it gets stuck. Okay? Because fruit will enter and leave the body really quickly. It goes into the stomach, within 30 minutes it's gone. It's gone out of the stomach. Okay? Because again, remember the digestion for fruit doesn't take place in the stomach. It takes place in the mouth, in the saliva, and then it wants to get to the small intestines, that slightly alkaline environment. That's where it finishes its processing. Okay? And that happens very quick if you eat fruit on an empty stomach. Okay, but if you eat fruit with other foods, it gets stuck in the stomach. It doesn't want to be in the stomach. When it gets stuck in the stomach, it starts to rot. It starts to ferment. And that's when it starts to feed candida. Then you turn, you know, if we're talking about high residue versus low residue foods, which we've talked about in the other classes, that's turning a low residue food into a high residue food. All of a sudden, a food who would normally never feed candida, if you eat it on an empty stomach, because it's in, it's out, you get the nutrients, you eliminate it, it's got a lot of fiber in it, doesn't cause a problem. But once it gets backed up in that steaming bog, as we joked about the other class, once it gets backed up in there and it starts to rot and ferment, that's when you create problems. Okay? So very simple. Eat fruit on an empty stomach. I kind of gave you just a basic list of the lowest sugar fruits. If you want to transition, if you have a severe candida fungal type of issue or any kind of infectious illness, even if it's Lyme's or any kind of a bacterial infectious issue, if you get, yeast infections or bladder infections, anything that ends in itis, here's another little trick. Anything that ends in itis, itis means infection. I don't care if it's prostatitis or whatever kind of itis you have, it's an infection. Okay, so it's good to follow this. So the lowest sugar fruits, lemons, limes, Granny Smith apples, and berries are very low in sugar. And then you can see the highest is dates, figs, bananas, prunes, grapes, etc. Mango. Oh, mangoes are so good, but they're really high in sugar. Again, in a healthy body, not a big deal, but in a compromised system, especially dealing with severe candida and yeast, you want to start with the lowest sugar fruits, maybe for a month, and then kind of transition to 2 and then transition to 3, and do it very slowly, and kind of pay attention to your body to see if you have any reactions or not. Do you have a question?
Yeah. When you combine fruit with, like say, proteins, and get stuck there,
right,
does it also interfere with the digestion of the protein?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a double effect then.
Double effect, yeah. And I'll just go ahead and talk about that now. So, okay, so let's go to any other questions on fruit, and we'll go to the second part, and we'll really get into that.
Okay.
Why can you have, go ahead. Why can you have Granny Smith apples in the cultured vegetables?
Why can you or can't
Yeah,
you?
can you?
Can you? You're asking if we can?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But why is that okay then?
Well, when you culture it, what happens in the fermentation process is bacteria eat sugar. Okay.
So that's why beets are okay too.
Right.
Okay.
When fermented.
Okay.
Yep. Do you have a question?
So I guess when you want to eat oatmeal in the morning, you put fruit on it. That's a no-no.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Okay.
Ideally, again,
Yeah.
if you do that a little bit once in a while and you're a healthy person, you're probably not going to notice anything from it. It's a guideline. It's, again, that consciousness of understanding what happens in the body when we do this. And over long term, it can create a problem. And if you have a compromised system, it will be a problem. So yeah, the next part, do not combine protein and starch. Okay, so when proteins enter the body, we talked about starches and sugars, what happens? Again, saliva, small intestine, slightly alkaline environment. Protein, exact opposite. Okay? Easiest example is, look at how our human body is designed. Okay? How long is our intestinal tract? From mouth to here.
30 feet.
35 feet.
You knew the answer, cheater. It's about 30 feet. Okay? From when it enters your mouth through about 20 feet of small intestine and about 5 feet of colon, you got almost 30 feet total. Okay? Now, if you study animals, and you look at animals that are carnivores, let's take a lion for example, very short intestinal tracts. Okay? And they produce lots and lots of hydrochloric acid. Why? The body has to dump lots and lots of hydrochloric acid to break down meat and to break down proteins. Okay? So when you don't combine foods properly, this is what happens. You have one food you're eating that needs an slightly alkaline environment in the small intestine, then you're eating another food that's dumping lots and lots of hydrochloric acid, then they neutralize each other. And you don't digest anything. And when you don't digest anything, you have a steaming bog. I just like saying that. You have a steaming bog. And we wonder why we have gas and acid reflux and heartburn, because that food is just sitting there and it can't go anywhere. It can't do anything. So it just rots. People that eat...
So we don't get the nutrients from that either.
And you
because
don't,
it
right.
doesn't assimilate. So.
Right, and you're not absorbing and assimilating your nutrients, because where are your nutrients assimilated? They're all assimilated in your small intestine. And if your food's sitting there in your stomach and it can't digest and break down, it takes it forever to get into the small intestine. Then you're not absorbing your nutrients properly, then you're constipated. Then you're constipated for so long, and it backs up so long, your body purges itself, and you have diarrhea. So a lot of people have alternating bouts of constipation and diarrhea. That's what happens. People don't go to the bathroom for days. And when the body gets filled up so much, it literally purges. And people have diarrhea for a couple days. So So don't combine proteins with starches. That's the second general rule to follow. And there's only 3. Okay, again, it's not complicated. Fruit on an empty stomach, don't combine proteins with starches. And I gave you a little list of starches down at the bottom there. Grains, potatoes, rice, squash, beans, artichokes. That's not a complete list, but you know, that'll get you through. So I kind of jokingly said, you know, talking about America, you know, what did we grow up eating? Hot dogs on buns, hamburgers with buns, sandwiches.
And French fries.
And French fries.
Yeah.
And who would ever think that a sandwich is bad for you? Sandwiches aren't bad for you, right? I eat peanut butter and jelly and grilled cheese my whole life. Okay, but again, if you look at food combining principles, you know, you can't do that. Again, we might be able to get away with it for a certain amount of time. Some people have stronger systems than others, but eventually it gets most people, especially in America. I mean, I think digestive problems is probably the number 1 problem in America. The top selling over-the-counter drugs, non-prescription, are laxatives and antacids, hands down. So digestion is the number 1 problem in America. And when I work with people, you know, clinically, you know, I'll find out what's going on with them, but regardless, I must always start with digestion, because you got to strengthen digestion before you can heal the body. So, any questions on that? No? Okay. And then number 3. And this is just to make it super duper simple. Okay? Non-starchy vegetables. So in other words, anything besides your starchy vegetables, which is potatoes, squash, things like that, yams. Okay? Every other vegetable combines with everything. Yes?
Isn't corn a starchy vegetable?
Yes. So yeah, put corn on that list too. Especially the corn in today's world. When my class from last week is online, I talked a lot about corn.
And peas, sweet peas, are they starchy?
Yeah, I would put beans and like legumes kind of in that category as well.
Starch.
Mhm.
Why the sweet potato? Because I kind of understood the sweet potato had more nutritional value, number 1, than the white potato.
Oh, it absolutely does, but it's still starch.
Okay.
It's still very starchy.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, it's just a guideline, you know. So it doesn't mean you're going to be perfect, because we certainly as heck aren't. I'm not either. So, but if you can remember that vegetables combine with everything, you can get healthy very fast by learning how to eat vegetables. And you know, I hear a lot of parents say, "Oh, my kids won't eat vegetables" and things like that. Well, if you don't fix it now, they're never going to eat vegetables, and then they're going to have a health problem, and they're going to have to force themselves to eat vegetables to get better. Because I put at the bottom, I thought I put it there. Maybe it's on the next page. I think it's on the 80-20 rules when I talk about that. The bottom line is you cannot have an alkaline, healthy internal environment if you don't eat vegetables, period. You just can't. And the only things that really truly alkalize the body are greens, like your grasses, your vegetables, and good quality water. And exercise, getting oxygen into the system. So if you're not eating vegetables, you're going to be real hard pressed to have a healthy internal environment. Okay? And what you will find is if you don't like vegetables, there's a lot of people that don't like vegetables. If you don't like vegetables, all it means is that you have a very acidic body. And until you start to reverse that, your body won't want vegetables. But as you force this upon your body, and you can do it gently, you can do it slowly, you'll realize you'll start to like vegetables. And you'll start to crave vegetables. And then you'll eat tons of vegetables. Happened with me. I grew up on corn, potatoes, and green beans. That's about it. Those are the big 3 for me. I think probably people can relate to that. But didn't eat another vegetable until I was probably in my late 20s. Now I love all vegetables. Actually, for some reason I still don't like tomatoes, but I'm weird. But I love every vegetable. But your body has to change. People that don't like vegetables, people don't like water. Again, so acidic, so used to drinking a lifetime of soda pop and coffee and milk and things like that that acidify the body. it's foreign to the body. And the body's so used to the poisoned environment, it doesn't like the right things. So you have to fix that. You have to switch that and reverse that. So, on the non-starchy vegetables combined with everything, here's the easiest way to eat healthy. Okay? This is Eating Healthy 101. You only need one page in this book. Okay? 80% vegetables. We're going to get to the 80-20 rules. But every meal, 80% vegetables, 20% something else. That's it. 80% vegetables, 20% a little piece of grass-fed beef. 80% vegetables, 20% a little piece of chicken or a little piece of fish. 80% vegetables, some wild rice. 80% vegetables, some quinoa. 80% vegetables, some sweet potatoes. That's it. It's super simple. Now, if you have major digestive problems, a lot of people can't do a lot of raw foods because of poor digestion. Eat them steamed. Eat them stir-fried. You know, it kind of pre-digests them for you. And you won't have gas and bloating and things like that. A lot of people that eat raw vegetables when they're not healthy have a lot of problems digesting them. Again, because their digestion's been weakened over time from poor food combining, eating lots of meat, things like that. Any questions?
Vegetables should be fresh, like canned isn't nearly as good.
Yeah, you definitely, canned is your last, like, if you're in the cellar because there's a nuclear war going on, I'm all about the canned foods, okay? That's great. But you know what? Spring's coming up. We need to plant our own gardens. We need to support the local farmers markets. There's tons. We're in Kansas. There's farmers everywhere growing fresh produce, and it's cheap. Okay? Then if you have to, you know, go to Whole Foods. You know, and again, last resort, canned. But you really don't want to eat canned foods, especially vegetables and fruits and things like that. Anybody ever had canned pineapple?
Yeah.
Okay, has anybody ever had fresh pineapple?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you tell the difference?
Yeah.
On everything.
It's like night and day. Yeah, it's on everything, but especially pineapple. Like, if I go to okay, I like Panera Bread, I do. But if they have a salad and they put a little bit of fruit on it,
Yeah.
you can tell in half a second if that's canned. That
Color is
quick.
different even.
It is.
It's like-
It's gross, man.
Well, they pour corn syrup in with it usually. You know,
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, they put some kind of sweetener in it, preservatives and stuff like that. Yeah. So. Okay. So any other questions on that with the vegetables and it's simple. Again, it might not be super easy for you to do in your life immediately, but again, just understanding that, you know, you can do this. Okay, it doesn't have to be complicated.
I have a question. Where do eggs fit in? They're just
Eggs would fit in with
protein
meat. Yeah, with protein. Yep. So what's a great meal for breakfast? An
also.
omelet.
Omelet with lots
Exactly.
of veggies.
Got eggs with lots of veggies, your green peppers and onions and whatever else. That's a great meal. And you're food combining properly. And the rest of your family will enjoy that. You know?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's when you start changing the way you're eating, it's hard to figure out what to do for the family. But just follow these basic principles. You don't even have to tell them you're food combining properly.
Right.
Just make things that they like and do it. You know? They won't know the difference. They don't care. They
They just
just,
had to skip the potatoes because potatoes are thrown in with a lot of things.
yeah.
You know.
Right. But you can eat potatoes with other vegetables.
Yeah.
So make up
Right.
a stir fry with potatoes and onions and peppers and
Yeah.
you know, all kinds of stuff. I do that all the time. It's great. Just potatoes and onions. I love that.
Kebabs on the grill is a good.
Yeah, grill it. Yeah. Oh man, I'm getting hungry.
When I first started doing this, I took potatoes out of our diet at home.
Mhm.
My husband dropped 20 pounds.
Wow.
And that's
amazing.
all I did was take the potatoes away from his meat.
Did you feel deprived?
Every time he goes out, he has potatoes with him. And he especially loves Oklahoma Joe's.
Oh, sure.
All right.
But see, then if you do it once a week
He
or
does
once every couple
He does
weeks
it maybe once a
versus every day.
Yeah, once
yeah.
every 2 or 3 months. So it's not very often, but I've gotten him away from the meat and potatoes,
Good for you.
and he just dropped the 20.
That's
Wow.
great. You know, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Just real quick on potatoes. When you go to the store and you do buy potatoes, just avoid the big white potatoes, those russet potatoes. It's a giant lump of sugar, and the only reason russet potatoes exist is because of fast food.
Yeah.
Okay?
Red
So
skins,
red potatoes are better? Or?
Right.
I mean,
Red potatoes, blue potatoes,
I've never seen blue potatoes.
yellow potatoes. Yeah.
Nature's Pantry
Purple.
has them. They're really tiny.
Even Whole Foods has the purple and the red ones.
Finger
Really? I
potatoes.
guess I've just never looked at
Is it the finger potatoes?
Or the fingerlings.
Yeah.
Yep, those are good too.
Seniors.
Yeah, they're really good.
Roasted with some
So
olive
just stay
oil.
away from the
Yeah.
big white potato. Okay? So I'm glad you mentioned potatoes. The other thing with fats and oils, also like a slightly alkaline environment. Again, like the small intestines. They don't need to be in the stomach. So if you're going to do your fats, do it with your vegetables. Okay, again, salad dressing. Put your flax and your coconut and all that stuff on your salad dressing. Okay, don't eat lots of meat with your fats. Like the example I gave is, people take mayonnaise with lots of olive oil and mix it up with their tuna. Okay, that's bad food combining. And then on liquids, we'll get to it at the end, but as a general rule, you don't drink water with your meals because it offsets your stomach acid. Now, if you're eating vegetarian, if you're eating vegetables, a little bit of water isn't going to affect anything. Okay? Because again, if you're eating meat, what has to happen in the body? Lots of hydrochloric acid has to be dumped. Okay? If you're drinking water, you're diluting that, you're offsetting that. That's all antacids do, is they offset some stomach acid. Okay? And real quick, in case anyone doesn't know this, the way to avoid antacids is to give assistance to your digestion, not neutralize it. Okay? Antacids neutralize and stop the digestive process. So it gets rid of your symptoms, but it causes steaming bog. So what you have to do is you have to assist digestion. If you don't eat the right foods, it's Thanksgiving, whatever, you're going out to dinner, you're with friends, you're just not going to food combine right, bring some assistance with you. Most people that have acid reflux don't have excess acid. 95% of them have a deficiency in acid. It's that deficiency in acid causing the food to sit there and rot and ferment that causes everything to come back up. Okay? So apple cider vinegar, aloe vera juice, there's a lot of herbs that can really stimulate digestion. We're going to have there's some digestive tips at the end here that we're going to go over. But in general, if you don't eat liquid, why do most people have to drink water with their meals? Because they're eating lots of bread and stuff. They have to choke down their throat. Okay? So if you chew properly and you eat 80% vegetables, you're never ever going to have a problem with that. You're eating watery foods.